That's fine. Okay. A dividend clientele may arise from one, differences in personal tax brackets across individual investors. Okay, some investors belong to the high income tax bracket group, high tax bracket group. Some low tax bracket group. Okay, high income people pay high tax, right? Low income people, sort of like me, pay no tax. Okay. Now, clientele, dividend clientele can also arise from differences in consumption preference across individual investors as well. Okay. In other words, different individual investors have different preferences that could arise from their tax situation or consumption preferences. That's it. Okay, we're getting there. Right? We get to the clustering. So why is that clustering? Why are there groups of firms, right? We observe firms that pay, that do not pay. That's systematic clustering. Investors that already pay a lot of tax would prefer to invest in capital gain, growth firms, prefer capital gain to cash dividend. They don't need cash. They're already on high income. They don't need cash. So why should they pay more tax? Because when dividends are paid, cash dividends are paid, they pay tax straight away. Right? Okay. But instead, if they go for capital gain, they don't need to pay tax if they don't sell the stuff that they own. Okay. Of course, the opposite applies for low income tax people. Now in another dimension, investors may simply have different consumption preferences. Okay. Some investors prefer cash now. Right? We want cash now. We can't wait for capital gain. Okay. Some other people, another group may very well prefer capital gain and have no need for cash income. Well, they just prefer capital gain to cash income, not because of tax, but because of their consumption pattern, consumption preferences. Okay. For example, some people go for blue chip stocks, some people go for growth stocks. Who would go for blue chip stocks? Who do you think? Who? Who would that be? Retired people, right? We go for income now. They can't wait for capital gain. Okay. But in reality, there are business brokers, okay, trying to sell, say, investment packages, okay, investment, whatever you want to call it, investment in teak plantation. You know teak? Teak, ไม้สัก teak wood plantation, okay. And in 25 years' time, right, they could harvest. All this would be done at small management fees, let's say. Right? That's the typical story. Okay, you put this much money in the plantation project. In the 25 years' time, get this much of capital gain. Right? The plantation will be worth that much. Okay. All right. So upon retirement of my uncle, there was this business broker, right, paying him a visit at his home in the upcountry, okay, and trying to sell this to him. He was laughing. My uncle was laughing, and then asked a question back to this broker. Yeah, in 25 years' time, where do you think I will be? I'm 60 now, retiring. In 25 years' time, I can't wait that long. The broker said, then the broker instantly, he's got very good wit. Instantly he said, never mind. Your children. Good for your children. And my uncle got very good wit as well. Instantly said back to the broker, I've got only one son, one child, it's a son. Do you see the idiot running around here? Do you see the idiot anywhere around here? He's not here. Why should I invest for him? Right? When he die, he's bound. When I die, he's bound to get it anyway. So the broker had to leave. Right? Consumption preference. Okay. Good example. Classic example. So don't go talking to old people about waiting for capital gain. Right? Unless right, they want to put money away for their grandchildren, which happens, right? Not just in Thailand, but in England as well. Okay, invest in stock. Some people invest in stock in the UK and opt for stock dividends rather than cash dividends, because those people are on very good, very high pensions anyway, and they have quite a large amount of money in the bank accounts. So, with these preferences, okay, tax preferences or consumption preferences, Miller and Modigliani suggest that in equilibrium, investors will migrate. This is a term. It has special meaning. Migrate to firms with a payout policy that closely matches their preferences. Okay. What does that mean? Let's say firm A is a payer, right? Stock B is a non-payer. I prefer dividend. I love dividend, right? I say at time one I hold stock, right? I hold shares in firm A. I hold stock A. Let's say one fine day is at time 0, at time 1, stock A changes dividend policy. So I get out of stock A, sell stock A, and use the proceeds to buy stock B. And let's suppose at the same time, stock B changes, right? Becomes payers from non-payers, right? So investors in stock B get out, sell the shares. So I buy the shares that shareholders in stock B sell, right? And stock B come to stock A. Shareholders in stock B come to stock A. Okay? In the competitive stock market, the stock market is big enough, right, and active enough, let's say, there'll be firms changing dividend policy all the time, right? So investors can move in and out, no problem. And move in and out costlessly as well, right? In the perfect capital market setting, right, as per their irrelevance, as in their irrelevance theory. Okay? So holding constant risk class, right, among firms defined in their assumptions. Firms belonging to the same risk class, some firms increase dividends, some firms decrease dividends, right, at the same time. So investors can migrate, can move. Now this firm no longer operates the dividend policy that I like. I move to a different firm. Okay? So, to this extent, given investors' ability to migrate, I'm going to say this: migrate costlessly, of course. Okay? Firms should not have lower value for making high or low payout, or higher value for making high or low payout, or changing their dividend policy. Okay? So, if firm has its own investor clientele, okay, then their choice of a payout ratio should not affect valuation of their equity. And at this point, the irrelevance obtains. Again, dividend is, or change in dividend policy, or in general dividend policy, does not matter to firm valuation, to the value of the left-hand side of the balance sheet. Okay. Or does not affect the total value that accrues to shareholders. All right. Before we look at this slide, how can we make sense now oops, out of an attempt to attract new investors, attract pension funds from Europe, purchasing. Well, if the large pension funds in Europe didn't come to compact before, why come now? Because we changed dividend policy. The clientele effect hypothesis suggested investors will migrate. Firms don't have to migrate. Going back to the Fisher separation theorem, firms should worry first about their production decision, right? Yeah, for consumption decisions, investors can buy themselves, go to the capital market, right? And make transactions. That is, to make intertemporal exchange of consumption, right? Consumption across time. Okay. Fin theory 1, start with R, somewhere, end with I. What's that name? Not the time. Okay. Anyway. You want me as your committee? Can you do SP? Alright. Do dividend clienteles exist? For practitioners, this is important. I wouldn't ask these questions, let's say, back 10 years ago or 15 years ago. People wouldn't ask this question. This is, people would ask this question, but not from practitioners' perspective. Not many people. Some people. Okay. Do clienteles exist? Have we seen a trace of tax clientele? Consumption clientele. This is consumption preferences, right? Arise from age difference, different age groups, right? Across this, then we can call this age clientele. Okay. Have you seen tax clientele? Have you seen this? People who pay a lot of tax tend to invest in growth stocks. People who haven't paid low tax invest in low tax brackets, marginal tax brackets. Invest in dividend paying stock. Do we see this? Have we seen this? Have you seen this? But our age, old people like my uncle invest in the dividend paying stock. Have you seen this? Yes, we've seen. Yeah, there's been some reliable evidence. At least 2 papers that I'm aware of. I think one in JF and one in JFE. Okay. Yes, there exists investor clientele. Okay, based on very, well, let's say, huge sample in terms of the number of transactions. Okay, but the data come from clients of one discounted brokerage house. Only. Okay. Now, next step. Do these investors migrate? I'm not sure. I don't think I have seen evidence. There's evidence of this. Whether these investors migrate. To test migration here, right? First step, right? A naive test would require firms, the stocks changing dividend, right? And investors getting out and then getting. Okay. So we as I recall, I'm not aware of evidence on this. Don't think about testing this too much. Too much for 6 units. Far too much. I think it would be too difficult. In Thailand, you can't test this. You need holdings data. If you get holdings data, let's say complete holding data, you can test it. But I'm not sure whether you can get that. Okay? Anyway, we know that there exists clientele. Only, right? Clientele space. No migration yet. And we know that there exists capital market frictions in the region. So in this case, well, clienteles can migrate causelessly in perfect market, but when there are frictions, clienteles may not be able to migrate. So this makes, so what could be the effect of clienteles on valuation? That's for practitioners to think about. I'm not going to examine you on this, because they don't know the answer. It's an empirical issue. Okay. All right. This is why I decided to talk about clientele after this example. And we discussed this compound example as part of adverse selection effect, right? Or information signaling theory of dividend. Now let's take a look at moral hazard in the employment contract and dividend policy. What if we allow moral hazard in the employment contract to enter our analysis of why firms pay dividend? Or should firms pay dividend? Or should shareholders demand dividend, let's say despite the tax effect, which leans towards capital gain, right? Pointing towards preference for capital gain. Anywhere in the world, especially in Thailand. What's capital gain tax rate in Thailand? Yeah, yeah. For individual investors. 0? Capital gain tax, yeah. You sure? You are correct. Alright? Now, when we allow moral hazard straight away in employment contract and we talk about cash, dividends is cash dividend, right? Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. Oh. Straight away, we would tend to think about free cash flow problem. As Jensen suggested, managers have incentive to keep a lot of cash in the firm. Okay. And from typical moral hazard story or agency problems in general, managers have incentive to hide information from shareholders as well. Go back to the stuff before the agency problem material, before the midterm exam, income statement example. Yeah, to efforts level, right? To efforts level. Okay. If shareholders have the same information that managers have, managers would not be able to consume on the job or extract private benefits of control from the operation. So the ultimate outcome is that the moral hazard would become severe. Okay, managers have incentive to create moral hazard anyway, to make information unobservable or through efforts, okay, or through choice of action, unobservable to shareholders. Make sure shareholders can't observe this. Okay. And at the end, shareholders will be worse off. All right. Of course, shareholders understand this. So now we have two things. Free cash flow problem. Right. Why keep a lot of cash in the firm? Well, we need to do this, we need this, need that. Blah, blah, blah. Right? And don't tell shareholders the full story. Shareholders cannot verify it, right, because of moral hazard. But shareholders can expect, right? Shareholders can expect, anticipate some probability of free cash flow problem. All right. So in this case then, shareholders got to be thinking, well, if moral hazard is serious, free cash flow problem is really serious, right? We have discussed free cash flow problem. Okay, so let's take cash out of the firm. Okay. So this should solve the free cash flow problem, if we take cash out. How could it guarantee that the problem will be minimized? Well, let's start from this. Managers need to reinvest. Do managers need to reinvest? But if managers don't reinvest, what happens to the firm? To their firm? Die. Right? It will be underinvesting. Yeah? If firms If the firm doesn't invest, its competitor will. Okay, and at the end of the day, the firm will die. Okay, so managers don't want to see the firm dying because the managers will go down with the firm. Right? So in this case then, if shareholders, as shareholders think, if we keep drawing cash out of the firm, draining cash out of the firm, right, through regular cash dividends, that is, because we're talking about regular cash dividends, we'll be able to keep managers coming back to the capital market for more money to reinvest, to make the required or necessary reinvestment. Okay, so they need money. If you remove, drain money out of the firm through cash dividend on a regular basis, managers will have little money left, not enough for the required reinvestment. So they need new capital, right? And they need to come back to the capital market for more money. Now, let's pause here. Now, it's time to lay all cards on the table, right? Do we need to say anything else? We have discussed debt maturity. Making maturity shorter improves the bargaining position of lenders against borrowers, right? Refinancing. Story is, the structure of the story is exactly the same. It is in different contexts. Okay, so there's no need to memorize. Lay all cards on the table. Right. The vocab that is used in the literature here is that when managers come back to the capital market, either for equity or debt, they have little money now. Never mind debt or equity in terms of new capital, right? They'll get scrutinized, thoroughly examined, that is laying all cards on the table, by market participants. Starting from, as Easterbrook pointed out, underwriters, right? IDs or underwriters. If they go to the capital market, do underwriters screen? Underwriters, actually, how do underwriters extract rent from their product market? How? From labor or from reputation? Do you think underwriters do a lot when they do deals? When they advise on deals, they cover deals. What do? They go like this. Pull something out of the shelf platform, say, same Excel, different numbers in. Here we are. All these assumptions, copy, right, from previous deals and paste into the same documents and put money in the escrow account and all these legal docs. Very thick document. But this is pretty much a reprint. Copy and paste. And proofread. Here we are. And charge huge fees. So they can do this if they have good reputation. So, given that underwriters feed on reputation or extract rent from their reputation, okay, make abnormal profit, right, earning rent from their reputation, do you think they would want anything to do with fishy firms, risky firms? No, right? The new project has got to be good before they say, okay, we agree to underwrite. They don't want to underwrite an issue and then the issue collapses. Right? The issue collapses, no. So, underwriters will do the screening first. If they take a first look, right, at your issue or your firm, and they think they're smelling something fishy, they'll get back to you and say, look, we're unable, right? The type of your business is outside of the scope of our capability, blah, 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 blah. Right? So they won't have anything to do. So as well documented in the literature that examines underwriters' business, there's a matching going on. Okay, we call that matching going on between type of clients and type of underwriters. Okay. High risk, issuers, high-risk firms, generally tend to use services from certain group of underwriters or financial advisors. Now in terms of banks, you want to borrow from banks, right? You're going to get screened by banks, that's for sure. Okay? This fits the news, the interview, very short interview on TV that I saw. It's one of some steel group, right? I think it's listed on stock exchange. Okay, it's a family business, and the son, right? The son is replacing his father in terms of the management, right? Who take after his father, right? But before, but earlier when the son was starting his job, his work in the firm, right? The father said to the son that, okay, the idea sounds fine, right? Go to the bank and try to get a loan. If the bank approves the loan, I will give you the money. Right? So the bank will screen first. Right? Then the father will give the son the additional money for the new project. Okay. Now, investors in general also get to do the scrutinization or the screening, okay, on the managers as well. How? Through prospectus. Firms have to issue prospectus, right, where they make public issuance of securities, okay, either debt or equity. They have to issue prospectus. And one of the very important sections in the prospectus is intended uses of proceeds. Do investors buy? Okay, the explanation given in this section. Okay, now I know we live in Thailand. In Thailand, I'm not the expert, but in the US, this section is very important. In Thailand, I have some sort of evidence, right, from my own work, my own data set. Because it's Thai data, it's not very big data set. So the number of observations are not very big. Okay, there's quite a bit of noise. The significance is not very high, right? But the information content in this section in the prospectus is quite important as well. I've got some evidence for that. Right? But I wouldn't say that this in Thailand it works as well. I'm not sure. Okay, I wouldn't be that bold, okay, because the sample is quite small. Okay, so all this screening or scrutiny essentially serves as monitoring. Talking about moral hazard now. After the signing of the employment contract, so there's monitoring on managers, right? Managers spending of the free cash. On managers' actions, decisions, okay? Now, well, I want more money, but what project are you thinking about investing in? This project, let's monitor, let's screen, okay? So the key idea here is to keep managers coming back to the capital market, right? Keep managers constantly exposed to the capital market risk. The idea is pretty much that the structure here is exactly the same as the one that we discussed in debt maturity. Okay? So there's nothing new here. Nothing new at all. So whenever, think about yourselves as managers, whenever you need to go back to the capital market, actually when you go to bank is part of capital market. Bank is financial intermediary, right? You go to bank, you get screened. Okay, you issue equity, you get screened. Okay, all right, same here. But managers do not get screened if shareholders leave a lot of cash in the firm. Okay, so when managers have to go back to the capital market, there'll be issuance costs. Yeah. So shareholders have to think, well, how serious is the agency problem in the firm? If the moral hazard cost or agency cost, right, arising from moral hazard in the employment contract in this case, are larger than insurance cost, let's pay the smaller cost, the smaller bill, which is insurance cost, right? And keep cash coming out, keep cash getting drained out of the firm on a regular basis. Remove cash from managers on a regular basis. Okay. What would be the cost of leaving cash in the firm in this case? Go back to Jensen 1986, free cash flow. Okay. Right. Of course, if the agency costs in the firm, as shareholders expect, are not that high. Very good managers, shareholders will leave cash in the firm. Okay. Actually, this model is consistent with Stokes 1990. Yeah? When firms, when a lot of growth opportunities are expected for the firm, leave a lot of cash, right? When growth opportunities are low, drain cash out of the firm. Okay. This idea, well, drain, in the case of Stokes, it's through loading the firm with debt. Right. So in Stokes 1990, for the same firm, right, there could be, let's say, 2 L sub 2. Okay. More than one optimal levels of leverage, right? High growth, optimal leverage is low. The period of low growth, expected growth, of course. L sub 2 is high. Okay? Right. So this model is, the two models here are consistent in a way. Okay. So in this case then, coming back to the case of dividend, trying to understand why firms pay dividend, then perhaps it's the agency cost. Together with capital market frictions, explain why firm pays cash dividends. The existence of capital market frictions, i.e. issuance cost, transaction cost. Okay, let's say, if you like, it's a factor that push shareholders towards leaving cash in the firm. Right? Because shareholders will have to pay for the insurance cost, flotation cost, and the pricing, whatever, right? All right. But at the same time, shareholders have to pay for the agency cost as well, right? The inefficiency arising from moral hazard in the employment contract. Okay. So insurance cost is the, I don't want to say inefficiency because in the capital market, because you would, right, tie this to inefficient market. But no, I'm not talking about that. Well, say transaction cost, let's say. Insurance cost, transaction cost. Okay. So if we think about this agency cost model of dividend, then we should understand why, yeah, if firm need to reinvest, why pay dividend? If firm need to reinvest, have expected reinvestment, right? Reinvestment needs. Then firm should keep cash in the firm. Right? Should not pay dividends or pay little dividend. Why do these firms, why do a lot of firms, say blue chip firms, pay good dividends, right? Pay good dividends and make SEOs or raise equity at the same time. Why do they do that? Well, this model rationalizes this phenomenon that we observe in the capital market. Okay. All right. So, given moral hazard, dividend cut are basically when firms should, when investors and shareholders expect that firms should pay dividend, and yet they don't pay dividend. Then they could equate this observation to the free cash flow problem, okay, then the market reaction could be very negative. The market would hit. Okay. So basically, thinking about this, when firms pay dividend or increase dividend, right, it could be interpreted as a credible signal that agency conflicts in the firms are quite low. There's no mechanism that allows managers to consume on the job, which is cash. Managers can do a lot of things with cash, right? Yeah. So if managers could use cash to benefit themselves at the expense of shareholders, and once shareholders remove cash out of the firm, managers are left with no tools to extract private benefits. Okay. So once again, if agency costs are big enough to justify or more larger than insurance costs, right? If that's the case, and shareholders expect that, and managers don't pay dividend or say cut dividend to invest, then the market reaction is likely to be very negative. Okay. So it will be interesting to test market reaction to dividend cuts across different scenarios to learn about this. Okay. Now, another attempt to try to understand why firms pay dividend can be called, is referred to by a lot of people as scattering theory of dividend policy. I'm not going to examine you on this because this idea assumes that the market is inefficient. And I don't think you actually understand market efficiency well enough. Or you understand behavioral finance at all. I don't think you do. Right. So my preference is that I don't want, basically I don't want to see master students jumping into behavioral finance to look for explanations. Okay, stay with the rational expectation framework first. Don't start your analysis with behavioral finance, because if you, as soon as you the second you scream out behavioral finance, you're going to get asked, or you have to ask yourself, what behavioral bias exactly that you're talking about. Okay, and it takes experts in market efficiency, right, to analyze this type of problem. Okay. I myself sit on the editorial board of a journal that love to publish behavioral finance paper, whatever it is, you know. And I have written to the editor, written email to the editor that, look, you know, to make the journal more popular, perhaps you need to consider papers that reject behavioral finance, not just EMH. Keep my own. But anyway, in this story, Baker and Werkler proposed that, at the bottom line, managers want to see investors happy. If investors somehow love dividends, right? And if we are non-payers, initiate dividends. At the same time, if investors somehow appear to prefer capital gain, for whatever reason, never mind, omit dividend. And in that JF paper, they report that the evidence that they find, okay, in the paper supports this argument. Okay. So, investors have time-varying demand of dividend-paying stocks. If I remember the paper correctly, this has got to be the case. Period 1, we love dividend, pay dividend. Period 2, right? We prefer capital gain, omit dividend. Now, why is our dividend demand time varying? If I remember the paper correctly, the paper sort of silent on this. Okay, that's fine. But for this to be the case, let's say dividend is time varying, right? And valuation moves as well. There's got to be systematic mispricing. And arbitrage is limited. Okay. In other words, the key ingredient of the catering theory is investor sentiment. Why do investors prefer dividend to capital gain in one period, and another period just love capital gain? Prefer capital gain to dividend. Why? Sentiment. So when you scream out sentiment, some people say, okay, fine, that's sentiment. But to me, I would ask, where does that sentiment come from? Why do investors all of a sudden have the same sentiment? When we see stock price, right? Stock prices move in the same direction. Is that sentiment? Or is that coordinated trading by institutions? Coordinated means they trade based on the same information. So they trade in the same direction. Is that the case or just sentiment? I don't know. Okay. Anyway, the theory does not say whether managers actually predict, right, the dividend demand, or simply respond to observe dividend demand. Okay. So are managers smart, so smart that they outwit the market, predict the market? The period 2, right, investors are going to go for capital gain. If they can predict that, they should omit dividend before the period starts, right? I don't know. Or they just simply respond to some sort of extreme investors' demand. Sort of demand, you have a distribution, right? Demand's in the tail of the distribution. And simply play with that. I don't know. Okay. So, some people say, some of my colleagues say, I don't think this is in the textbook yet, or will ever be in the textbook, because said by some of my colleagues. A few colleagues have said, well, to them, this carrying theory sounds like clientele effective policies repackaged. Instead of having investors chasing firms, right? Chasing dividend policy, right? This dividend policy is chasing investors' demand, investors' preferences. Okay, so that's catering theory. Just in case you may come across this. Now, more importantly, let's take a look at alternatives to cash dividends. So far, when we talk about dividends, implicitly we assume that the dividends are cash dividends. And it is a cash dividend. Dividends being cash, made of cash, that provides solution to, let's go back in time, moral hazard problem, right? Employment contract. Yeah, free cash flow problem. Take cash out through cash dividend. Adverse selection, put your money where your mouth is, increasing cash dividend. Confirm, try to do the same thing, achieve the same outcome using stock dividend. Free cash flow problem, certainly no. What about adverse selection problem? I'm not sure. But it'd be interesting to see. Okay. Well, ceteris paribus, if the left-hand side of the balance sheet does not change, and firms announce stock dividends. This simply means more cuts in the same pie, right? The size of the pie being the same. More cuts, the size of the cut gets smaller. Each cut gets smaller. But of course, in reality, something may have changed. Something may have changed. In this case, stock dividends may have information content, but I will not examine you on this. It's beyond the scope of this course. Okay? But it is possible to test this idea. Okay? But if I don't mention this, the story would be half-baked. The decision to initiate stock dividends have information content. You could try to model that on your own, but perhaps do this after the final exam. Spend time, allocate time to this examinable stuff first. Now, instead of paying stock dividends, a lot of firms make stock splits. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have said, how about stock splits? Out of the blue. Firms make stock splits. Have you heard of splits? What kind of split? Chapui. Banana split? At Swenson? You're smiling. You like banana split? At Swenson. Right. And ice cream. I actually don't like it. I just like ice cream only. I don't like fruit in ice cream. Anyway, firm make lots of split. What do splits look like? 2 for 1 split. You get 2 for only 1 share after this. Okay. So shareholders end up owning 2 shares instead of 1 share, right? And the price was half. Right? Compact did split, didn't it? Right? Made a split in the news article as suggested by the news article. So given the flow of the news of the article, of the compact news article, the first announced 3 cents a share, 2 for 1 split, yeah? Dividend drops by half to 1.5 cents a share. Okay. But if dividend per share is not cut by half, 1/2 in this case, shareholders will end up getting more dividends in total. Let's say you own 1 share and 2 for 1 split. Okay, dividend per share is 5 baht per share. Okay, and after the split, dividend gets cut down to, instead of 2.5, but to 3 baht per share. So all up, in total, the increase is 1 baht net. Okay. So in this case, then splits can be viewed as an alternative to pay cash dividends, to increase cash dividend as such. But actually, it's an increase in cash dividend. The actual dividend in aggregate goes up. Now, ceteris paribus, okay, if the left-hand side of the balance sheet remains unchanged, the effect of split is also neutral on wealth, same as stock dividend. Okay? So there's no point in making splits. Of course, if dividends get cut by half in the 2 for 1 split example, it's no point. But why do we observe a lot of splits? And in many splits, dividends get cut by half as well. What for? Let's ask managers. Manager says that, look, share price has grown too high. Could be due to a true performance, but plus inflation. For whatever reason, the share price has gone up very, very, very high. Right? The price is big. Okay, over time, of course, over a period of 15 years, for example, or 10 years, from let's say $90 a share, or $50 a share, okay, to $700 a share. $700 a share Easy or difficult to trade? In Thailand, what would be the largest share price? The figure? 500? 1,000?
3,000.
3,000? Which stock is that?
Ram Khamhaeng Hospital.
Is that big? 3,000? How many shares can I buy now using my salary? Thank you, thank you. I look good. I look good. I look good. Goodness me, 3,000 a share? What's the minimum lot on Ram Khamhaeng Hospital? 100? 50? Never mind, even 10. Still big for me. Right? Okay, so not many people can afford to trade, right? To buy. Right? If not many people can buy, if you hold Ram Khamhaeng shares, is it easy or difficult to sell? Could be difficult. Right? So the shares are likely to become irregularly traded or illiquid. That is, thinly traded. Not because the firm is bad. Okay, the firm is good. Stock is good, good value for money, but the price is just so big. Okay, so let's go for, in this case, 10 for 1. No, still big. 20 for 1 for Ram Khamhaeng. Cut the price down. No, as an example. Only saying this from my personal perspective so that I could afford to buy 50 shares at a time. Okay, otherwise I can't. So in this case, there will be more of people like me, right, being able to participate in the trading of the stock. So liquidity should be. Is liquidity valuable? Is liquidity valuable? Yes? How do you know that? What does it mean, liquidity here? Stock liquidity. Ability to liquidate asset, liquidate your holding. It's the same thing. Same as when you say firms lack liquidity. Okay, the same thing. Right? Liquidate, holding into money, into cash. Okay. So if liquidity is important in this case, after the split, price should go up. Price should go up as a result of the decision to make split. So split should create value. Now, one commonly observed pattern is that, let's say, for simple example, 2 for 1 split, share price of 100, right? 2 for 1 split should drop to 50, right? But price could drop to, let's say, 55, not 50, 2 for 1 split. So 5 is the net price increase and represents improvement in liquidity. Okay. So when the split decision is announced, publicly announced, what we tend to observe, even when firms, right, do not pay dividends, no dividend story involved, right? The split announcement is made, the market reacts positively to the announcement, so price goes up. Okay. And then the effective date for the split then comes later. Okay. Okay. So that's split, the story of the split. Alternative to cash dividend, in particular, special cash dividend. Not regular dividend, special cash dividend is buyback or share repurchase. Okay. Instead of paying special cash dividend, right? This special cash dividend is not the same as regular increase in regular dividend. Just one-offs. Okay. Now, both special cash dividends and buybacks have the same effect on the firm's balance sheet. Reduce cash. Right? Have the same effect on both sides. Okay. reserve down, cash down, by the same amount. Right? Because instead of paying that special cash dividend, spend that money on the buyback. And we observe a lot of buybacks, especially in the US, not a lot in the UK. Prior to 2000, 2002, something like that. There's a good reason. Okay. In Thailand, there was no buyback. I don't think there's buyback at all until 2002. I think it was 2002 or 2004. I can't remember. Okay, very interesting in Thailand. Anyway, in general, let's go back to the free market setting like US and UK say nowadays. Why do firms buy back? Why should firms give cash back to shareholders via buyback instead of special cash dividend? Why? Because firms that decide to do buyback, right? They give up the choice of paying special cash dividend. So why is that? They could have announced special cash dividend, but why buyback? First, if they announce a buyback program, okay, you'll be not so difficult to cancel or spread the amount of money that they want to spend on the buyback, right, over time. They could cancel the buyback as well, but they can't do the same thing here. They can't cancel, they announce or declare special cash dividend or spread the special cash dividend. Just imagine, right, you have announced special cash dividend and you cancel it. You come back to buyback cancellation. You announce, declare special cash dividend. I'm the firm, you investors, you shareholders. I've announced it. And then later on, right, after the X date, let's say I cancel it, another announcement, going to have to cancel the declared special cash dividend. How would you feel? You don't need to go to the post office or anything like that, right? Call the bank. How would you feel? You call me straight away and I said, duh, cancel. We haven't bought the bank draft. How would you feel? Why? Straight away, right? Why? And if there was no answer or satisfactory answer, you don't buy the answer from the firm 100%. What would happen to stock price? What would you do to the stock? Buy more? Buy wholesale? Buy wholesale, which one? Recommendation? Super sell. Very sell, very much, right? Okay. Can I cancel the announced buyback? Easy reason. Well, the market has moved against us. The prices now has gone up. So the management has decided not to spend the firm's cash on the buyback. Wow, that's good. That's good. Manager is doing well, right? Don't waste the firm's cash. Okay. For spreading over time, the amount of money over time. What if I announce special cash dividend, right? To be over the next 5 years, I'll be paying special cash dividend. Is that special anymore? That's the same as dividend increase, right? But the point of labeling the dividend, this additional dividend, extra or special, right, is to avoid the shareholders' expectation that the increase is permanent. So it defeats the purpose. But of course, with buyback, we can say, yeah, we will spread over time. And we announce, there'll be more announcement to come when we're going to, upon the execution, the actual execution. Okay, but I have announced a program. Also, very importantly, buybacks allow me to send a signal of valuation, undervaluation. Same as dividend, right? Signaling here, good type, bad type. Let's say the firm is a good type, right? So the current market price is too low. We're currently undervalued. I buy back. How could my decision to buy back is a costly signal that I'm the good type being undervalued. The firm is good type being undervalued. If I don't have the money, would I be able to buy, to buy back? No. No. 1, 2, who is buying? Who is buying? Insider? The firm is buying its own shares. Right? So informed, in this case, we have informed investors buying, right? Or incurring cost. Right? Buyback is costly, yeah? If the future is, if your prospects are not good, and you're spending cash now, it's going to cost you, okay? Right, so this is a mechanism through which buyback signals undervaluation. This has been tested a lot in the literature. Okay, but of course, to test this, firms must be allowed to recycle the repurchased shares. Okay, they have what's called treasury stock. So, okay. In the UK, I think before 2002 or 2004, I cannot remember exactly, but around that time, right, there was no, firms were not in the UK allowed to recycle the shares, the repurchase, only in the US, right? Before then, UK firms would have to cancel the shares, right? Basically, they have to cancel capital when they do buyback. I think Thai firms are the same, but in Thailand now, I think firms, I'm not sure about the law, check out the law. And if you're interested, then go ahead. Very important as well. What if you don't need cash? With special dividend, you get cash anyway, right? You get extra income, but you don't need it. But I give it to you anyway. So when I give it to you straight away, what happens? Tax. With buyback, do you need to tender the shares back to the firm? Sell the shares back to the firm? No. If you don't need cash, don't need to sell shares back to the firm. Don't need to pay tax. Right? Your holdings in the firm stay. Okay. All right. Okay. And that's alternatives to cash dividends. And that's the end of in theory 2. Bye-bye. That's it. You're free to go now. And exam next Sunday. I don't have anything else to say. Good luck, good luck. Any closing speech? So this next term, and then the end of first year, right? In how many years do you expect to get your degree? In how many years? 2 years? Okay. If you want to get your degree in 2 years, by my standard, personal standard, and my standard is driven by learning, students learning, not as long as you pay the fee, you get your degree, not like that. Right? Okay, same in this course. we should start thinking about your topic seriously by next term. Okay, next term there'll be what's it called, elective courses, right? And I strongly advise that those who don't have background in computing or reading programs, right? Writing programs, okay, accounting, audit, do the, what's it called?